welcome, welcome everyone. It's good to see so many folks already in the chat. We got lots of folks from Ottawa, from Canada, Vietnam, Miami. Wow, that's nice. I like seeing that. But welcome everybody. Welcome to the second inaugural Ivana Marco app review kind of AMA situation. Happy to be here. So basically a little lowdown on myself is I've been on the app review team for a few years now at Shopify, reviewing apps all the time. And Ivana is actually you. I'll let you introduce yourself actually.
I was on the app review team for a really long time. I think something close to 3.5 to 4 years. I am now doing operations for our experts marketplace. So if there's any experts in the house, let me know. I'd love to hear your questions on building apps for our merchants.
Definitely. So yeah, I mean, throughout the stream, if we fire up some questions in the chat, that's obviously totally fine. We got Jeff Haga from the app review team. He's in the chat, and we've got Liam, who is also moderating the chat as well. So feel free to ask questions there. If we don't spot them on the stream, they will also get answered there. So yeah, what we're gonna do is I've just picked one app for today, just because we've already got a lot of questions actually lined up through the Slido form that we posted before the stream. Some of them were kind of similar, so we just kind of you could like upvote them if you wanted to, but yeah, we've got some kind of like FAQs that we'll go through. But yeah, so I chose just one app. We'll go through it, and basically what I'm looking to do today is just kind of walk through like how we look at the app when we are reviewing it. Just little things that we like to see, and then we also want to kind of explain like what is the hard requirement versus what is like the nice to have. So ideally, there's some good explanation there about just like this is what we need to see when you submit your app for review, and then also here's some things that you can do to kind of like make your app that much more kind of like user friendly and just knock it out of the park. So let's see here. We got some questions in the chat already. This is great.
Yeah, we've got fired up. Let's go.
Alrighty. Hello from Sri Lanka. Amazing. So let me just switch our little scenes here and hope this
set
works.
us up with a really great.
Here we go. Okay, awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, Ivana, feel free to like interrupt me at any time. I know. Okay. Amazing. All right, so just the screen has switched here, and basically the app that I've selected is an app called Gift Sales Booster. I've emailed the partner letting them know that we're doing this today. So basically, I just want to jump right in. Also, I apologize. The wind is whipping so loud. I don't know if it's happening where you are, Ivana, but there is like insane wind whipping past my window right now. So you might hear this like really cozy sound. Your audio's cut out? Could everyone hear her before? Can't hear you. What if I do... Hold on. Okay, try this.
Can you hear me now? Should I call you?
Did this work? Should call me back. This should work. Yes. Okay, beautiful. Thank you, chat. Thank you, everyone.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You should have seen how lit up my Slack just went, letting people know. Okay, everyone, streaming is difficult, okay? Streaming alone is hard enough. Streaming with someone else, it's a lot of moving parts here, okay? But we crushed it.
I thought you were pro at this.
I am. It's because I've taken too much of a break, because we should do these more often.
I agree.
All right, cool. So yeah, what I was talking about is, yeah, this is a partner. I've emailed them just letting them know we're going to take a look at their app, but this is basically like a app that is going to put a pop-up on the storefront that can lead to like a discounted item. And what it does is essentially it's going to generate a lead for the merchant. And it also has the functionality of letting you export those leads to like a CSV file, and you can then do with them what you please. So not like too deep dish of an app for sure. This is like a just like well-built app, kind of checks all the boxes right away, but I think it's a really good example of something that does affect the storefront. And there's also some things that I will definitely be sending this developer just to kind of talk about how they can kind of make some changes to their app. So right away, what I want to talk about, and this is kind of like the first thing that we always check for in a review, and it sounds simple enough, is if the app is actually going to OAuth first. So that is a
Yes.
really important thing. I really can't stress that enough. Is that your app has to undergo OAuth as a very first step. So like the second we put in that install URL, the second that add app button is clicked, you need to be directing to the OAuth screen. And I feel like I'm talking like really intensely right now, but the reason I really need to nail this down is just because your app will 100% be rejected if you do not OAuth first. And the other thing that's important to note there is
there's actually a question in Slido that we got that was like, what are the top 3 reasons why apps would get rejected? And like, that is top 100 reasons.
Yeah, that is the number one for sure. But yeah, there were a couple of really good questions actually from, they're both from Robert. Not sure if it is the same Robert or 2 unique Roberts, but either way, Robert, great questions. And the questions were essentially, the top 3 reasons that we see early rejections. And then there's a question about kind of like the turnaround time. So I'm going to honestly answer those right now, just because it's a nice way to start this process. So I also like to see that people in the chat are kind of helping each other out with answers as well. So that's nice.
I love this. This is sort of like what's unique to the Shopify community, I find, is like everybody works together because we're all trying to solve the same problems. And you really get to see and like feel that sense of ownership and community and people helping each other.
Yeah.
It's kind of why our merchants are getting the best help that they can.
Exactly. And that's what I like to see too. I like to see like partnerships forming within our partners. You know what I mean? Where you got like an app dev who's partnering up with an agency and things like that. So it is, honestly, it's a good little ecosystem we got going on here, I'd say. But yeah, to go back to that question of kind of like what are the 3 main things that we early reject for. So number 1 is definitely OAuth. So if your app does not OAuth first or at all, you're going to 100% get rejected. And what's really important there as well is that is where the review is going to start and stop. So if your app does not OAuth first, like we are not going through any other points of that review process. So it's really important to note that your app OAuth first, so you submit it and we can do like as extensive of a review as we can. I would say the second is that it just doesn't work, which is kind of like a large encompassing thing, but it's really important that your app works when we review it. So essentially what I mean by that is that if I put in your install URL and it just like errors out to some page, that is like a failed install, and obviously there's nothing we can do. But the caveat there is that if I click add app and it goes to an error page, there's a few things that we'll still try and do. We'll try to reinstall it, obviously. We'll have a colleague try to install it on their shop just to be sure. And then the other thing is this kind of error thing also encompasses, like, let's say your app does go to OAuth first, which is great. That's what we want to see. And then we click install app and then it redirects to an error page. That's not necessarily going to be an immediate early rejection, because what we'll do, because we've gone through OAuth and it looks like the redirect is busted, is that we will actually go into our app index page and try to open the app. And a lot of the times, the app will still open and we can still use it to an extent. And so we will try to review as much as the app as we can, but it'll ultimately still be rejected because there is a pretty fatal error redirect there. I'm trying to think of a good third one. So we got OAuthing.
While you do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about OAuth and why it's so important. And like, yes, authenticating into any platform is incredibly important for security reasons. That goes without saying if you've ever tried to OAuth into Facebook, for example. But it's actually an incredibly powerful tool to you as a developer as well. And the amount of information that you can gather from that initial handshake that can make it so much easier for your merchant to use your app. And that's the first step where you can take ownership of that entire journey, right? That experience that the merchant has. You can gather stuff about like where they're located, what language they use, what plan they're on, all sorts of info that you can use later on to autofill forms if you have them, right? You can use that information for your billing. Honestly, like it's a very powerful tool to have in your back pocket. So take advantage of it. Yeah. It's really important for you to use it. So why not take advantage of whatever it is that you need to get from it as well?
Agreed. That's an excellent point too. I mean, the main thing about your app is that you really want to see it be this kind of like obviously easy to use, but this really nice kind of like complementary extension to the Shopify platform, right? So if you can make that kind of installation journey, onboarding, everything just really as easy as possible for the merchant, you're already kind of winning.
Ooh, we got a really good one here. Failed redirect only in Chrome, but works fine in
Okay, yeah,
Firefox.
some browser compatibility stuff. No, really good question. So here's the thing: we are always going to be testing apps and reviewing apps in Google Chrome. That's kind of the start and stop of that one. So obviously, it's important that your app can work in multiple browsers because your merchants are going to be using different browsers. But it's yeah, we will always be reviewing in Chrome. So if your app is going to be not necessarily working in Chrome, then the review is not going to go far, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And okay, I'm trying to think of a good third reason we see a lot of early rejections. I'm probably going to say billing API for this one. I think that's
I was
probably
just about to ask.
yeah. I think billing API is a pretty big one. So to recap, we've got no OAuth first. We've got fatal errors within the app or in the installation process, and then we've got no use of billing API. So what's actually really interesting about the app that we're looking at right now, Gift Sales Booster, is that they have plans listed on their listing. But when I went through the installation process, I didn't necessarily get a charge authorization screen. But when I look at the app history, I can see, so this is something we'll do, I check the app history and I can see that there is evidence of billing API usage really, really recently. So they've been testing it and it's been working. So in that case, what I do is I would still flag them saying, hey, you need to use the billing API. But I would also kind of dig in a little deeper with them and ask, hey, when does this happen in the installation process? Ideally, what you want to do is go through OAuth. If you're charging for your app, then you go to a charge authentication screen, and you can start the free trial, and then the merchant can basically just authorize and accept the charges, and then you're good to go. Then you go to your onboarding.
I mean, I don't think we're saying that this is set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
What we're saying is that this is the experience the merchant is now expecting to happen. So when it doesn't happen, like the majority of other apps, there should be some sort of reason as to why, right? So whether that be a modal or because your app is just taking a different route, for example, usage charges, just make sure that your merchant is aware because that's what they're expecting.
Yeah, super important. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
what I want to showcase right now, just on the screen that we're on, is that this app did undergo OAuth first and it did install correctly. We also test reinstallation.
Yes.
Normally, we're going to test that at the very end of a review, just so we can go through as much as we can. And then it's like, okay, now let's try and reinstall the app and make sure that works. If it doesn't work, if it errors out on a reinstallation, you're not going to get rejected. And that's why we kind of save that till the end of the process, because normally that's a pretty quick fix. So
Nice.
the main thing about OAuth 2 is that, like Ivana was saying, this is where the merchant is going to authorize the scopes that your app is requesting, right? So just want to show here that this app's main functionality is that it's going to put a pop-up on the merchant storefront that they can configure. It's going to lead them to a product page or whatever link they want and generate a lead. So essentially what we got here is everything they're going to need. They got to read and write the theme to put the pop-up on the page. And they're going to use script tags, which is great. And that's really about it. So we will definitely be pretty strict on the scopes that you are going to be requesting. And basically what you don't want to do, and we actually see this a decent amount, is that we're going to see like apps will just request every single scope ever and submit their app because they think like, oh, like maybe I'll need it, or let's just be sure kind of thing. But we will definitely flag, like if this app was asking to read payouts, that would probably be an issue.
Totally.
And I mean, when we ask, like we'll definitely flag it and we'll ask you, and we'll just kind of say like, hey, what are you using this scope for? And it's a conversation. We're not gonna, slam down hard and say what's going on here. What are you trying to do? We're literally just asking you. Yeah.
It's important to note, I think, that you can actually increase or decrease your scopes as your app and your business grow,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like we're not saying that your app will just stay the same the entire lifetime that it has on the Shopify App Store. Like obviously we expect you to grow with the feedback that you're getting from the
Yeah.
merchant and for the app to change and add new features. You can simply just request those scopes be added, and the merchant will just re-authenticate into the app the next time they visit.
Yeah, and
That's basically it.
a really good. A lot of the times we get asked kind of thing like, what's the process? How do I update my app? Do I have to resubmit it for review? That kind of thing. And no, the quick answer is no. If you're doing an update to your app, you don't need to resubmit it for review, and just kind of do exactly what Ivana just said. Just re-auth basically if you're requesting a new scope.
Yeah. I think it's fair. Like we expect you to grow as you gather feedback from your merchants, right? Like if you're truly building something valuable to them in their business, then it will change over time because you're learning.
Exactly.
Too. Like your business will also grow just like theirs will.
Yeah, no, very, very true. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over to the listing of this app here because a lot of things happen in the listing, and this is definitely after installation. This is probably the first thing that we're going to and looking at. So if you've got some good listing,
I haven't seen this. This looks really good.
Yeah, no, it's a good listing for sure. I like this because it's well done, and there's also a couple things that I would ding them on. So I think that's a good example, So first and foremost, the name of the app.
Start with the tagline.
You want to start with the tagline? All right, cool. Get more sales and leads with gift promotion. I love this tagline.
That's a good one.
That's a goodie.
Yeah, it's like strong to the point.
Yeah.
It tells you exactly what you're going to get. It's like it's your first sales pitch. It is literally the first step to your sales pitch.
100%. And there was also a question in the Slido form that talked about. I know we're not quite there yet, but I just want to kind of talk about the like search term situation. So the big distinction here is that when you're creating your App Store listing, there's going to be fields where you can input search terms. Those search terms are specifically for the Shopify App Store search. So there's a question about that. And then when you get into things like your title and tagline, so the name of your app and its tagline, those are things that are going to get crawled. So your name and tagline are super, super important. I see there's a question in the Twitch chat about seeing many apps that have the same name on the Shopify App Store. Yeah, it definitely does happen time to time, but it's important to really, really, really try and be as unique as possible. We understand that there's going to be things your app does where you're just like, it's hard to create like a very specific name for something that might be like a basic function. But it should be a unique identifier. It shouldn't be a description of what your app does here. So gift sales booster is actually pretty good. It's not the most unique name I've seen before, but it's not something that I would hit for being like overly generic. If it was like boost sales using a gift pop-up, then I'd probably say, hey, this is a descriptor. This is not like a really unique situation. And
totally.
Then you've got your tagline.
I mean, it's like starting any business, right? Like you would Google to see if that business name already exists. So why not just simply hop into the App Store, do a quick search and see if that name already exists. Don't forget that the App Store has actually been around for quite a while now. So there's apps in there that have been around since the beginning of the App Store, right? So those names have been around for a really long time. So you definitely want to be competitive. Pick a name that's really freaking jazzy, something that stands out and is catchy. And don't add if I to it, like Shopify. And then, run with that. Create your branding around that.
Definitely. And the tagline is more where you can get a little bit more descriptive of like, this is what the app does. But that's definitely where you want to kind of hammer in some good keywords for sure. This one's great. Get more sales and leads with gift promotion. Sales, leads, gift, promotion, good words. So these are things where a misuse of the tagline would be like if you just threw the name in again. We'd talk to you about that. And also you don't want to be using the word Shopify. In fact, I don't even think you can type that word in anymore. It'll just automatically tell you that. See, we're getting a lot of questions in the chat, so it's going to be a little tricky to keep up. But I just want to say that we do have someone who is tracking these questions in a form. So you will.
If you don't get your question during this live stream, we will answer it in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll definitely reach out.
Beauty. All right, so moving on down, we're going to take a look at the key benefits images. These are fun. So
yeah, these are great.
Yeah, key benefits images are really just kind of like quick, fun graphics. You want to be pretty simplistic with them. One requirement that we do have that I would definitely talk to this developer about in the review would be that we don't allow text in key benefits images. So these kind of headings here, drive more sales, grab leads. These we would not permit. We'd ask them to remove that text. There's some like things. Here's our thing. Like if it's for illustrative purposes, like you throw a percent sign, a plus sign, a dollar sign, stuff like that, that's cool. We get it. Or like sale, things like that. We won't crack down super hard on that, but we can't have like descriptors here because this is kind of like screenshot territory, and also it's just not going to look good across the board on the App Store.
No, and these aren't a requirement, I don't think. But going back to what the merchant expects, when 90% of the apps listed in the App Store have a key benefit image, and then they land on your app that doesn't have any key benefit images, it kind of looks different, right? So their expectation immediately is shifted, and what they perceive your app to be.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just sorry, I was just reading the key benefits like text here, and this is all good to go.
Awesome. Yeah.
So you do have some kind of like intense character limits there, and the reason for that is that these aren't supposed to be like massive infographics about your app. It should be just like, what are the 3 big points you want to get across about your app? You've got 3 key benefits, get them across there. But also just be really kind of conscious, like the key benefits titles are 30 characters, I want to say. So when we're going through your listing, what we'll do is we'll go through, and like if I see 30 out of 30 are used, I'm going to check them to make sure you haven't like cut off your sentence, which actually does happen a decent amount. So just be really conscious of that. And you want these to just be like bullet points, nothing too intense. So those are good, but I would just kind of ask them, hey, let's get the text out of these key benefits. Alrighty, moving on down.
Awesome. I'm actually going to interrupt you with a question. Richard asks, hey, Marco and Ivana, our app Cartwheel has been pending for 55 days without any changes or an ETA on when it'll be approved. Are you facing a massive backlog during COVID? If not, what can we do to expedite the approval process?
Right. No, it's a great question.
It's
a great question about connector apps. Excuse me. So I wouldn't really say that we're seeing a massive backlog like due to COVID or anything like that. The connector app process is kind of a fresh one and something that's being worked on. But that is definitely a long period of time. So I'm definitely going to look into Cartwheel for you. But what can we do to expedite the approval process? Partners waiting on approval. Okay. To expedite the approval process is just going to be a question of keeping things extremely clear in terms of really being obvious of what data is it that you're going to be essentially kind of like funneling to another party. So that's kind of like the really main thing we need to know. And if you can provide as many details about that party as you can, that would also kind of help speed things along. But yeah, that is a long time. And I think we were actually taking a look. There were a couple of questions about the connector app process. So we're going to, so that's been added to the forum, Richard. And I will definitely take a look into that for you because that is a long time. And at the end of the day, definitely appreciate your patience on that. But clarity is key there. The main thing too, if some viewers aren't familiar and you're developing a connector app, essentially any app that is going to be taking Shopify data, putting it through your app, and then providing it to another party, that isn't you. So we can throw around the
term
like
it's passing on information and data to make something work.
Yeah.
I want to address Annihilate. Hey, Marco, is the app name you're viewing a generic name? No, it is not.
No.
Thanks for the question, Annihilate.
No, I would say that this is not overly generic. I would not ding them for this, for sure.
No. Could it be more unique and fun? Absolutely. But it's not generic, in our opinion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to funnel on down here to this detailed description. Definitely detailed, I would say, for sure. So this is something that I also see that there's some questions about like listed and unlisted apps. Um, a lot of the time, we're basically going to withhold like the same. I don't know if withhold's the right word. You know what I mean? We're going to apply the same requirements to a listed app as an unlisted app. So we are going to expect that your listing be like as fleshed out as it can be on an unlisted app. There's going to be certain fields that won't matter if you submit your app as unlisted, things like search terms. But in terms of how this listing actually looks, we are going to review it the same way. Um, and
I think the basic rule of thumb is if this app is going to be consumed by
yeah,
merchants, then it needs to meet all requirements, regardless of whether it's going to be listed or not listed.
yes, exactly. Same requirements are going to be applied to the review. That's something I definitely want to nail down there. Even if your app, like we do have the ability to ensure an app remains unlisted, but same thing. We're still gonna it's still gonna have to be just as good, quote unquote, as a listed one. All right.
Absolutely. Six Peppers asked about possibility gaining access to an API that is used internally at Shopify. I don't actually know if this is an internal API or not, but to answer your question, Six Peppers is unfortunately there is currently no API access to see which apps the merchant has installed in their store. There are privacy concerns with that. Maybe merchants don't want you to know, right? Um, so for now, unfortunately, you don't get access to that API if it is even an API or if we're using data reports.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah,
Yeah. Geez, look at I love seeing this active chat. This is sweet.
I know.
You know, if
This
I
is
was
so cool. It is moving
it's
so
moving
quickly.
quick. We got a lot of
You
folks in here.
guys
This
are
is sweet.
killing it.
Yeah, so thanks again for tuning in. And I hope this has been
Yeah.
helpful so far for sure. But I'm loving these questions. So kind of to recap on the listing, the main takeaways so far is that you want to be unique with your name. You want to really drive home what your app does with the tagline, and these are going to really help you with ranking, both in and outside of the Shopify App Store. So that's really important to keep in mind. But the main thing too is that the search terms that you enter when filling out your app listing submission are just for the Shopify App Store.
Noted.
So let's just
That's actually really great,
yeah. So don't
like
like
distinction.
yeah, definitely. Those are big things to think about. Also, like at the end of the day, I know there's questions. There's a really good question about kind of like post approval reviewing, in terms of like how do we withhold these standards after you've been approved. There's questions about things like updating your app, which we kind of already answered. And then there was also a question about switching your app visibility. That you can do it absolutely anytime you want. Um, the only thing that we definitely by default lock to being unlisted, which was another question, are plus only apps. So if you only want your app to work with Shopify Plus merchants, we switch that to being unlisted only. But yes, you have the freedom to change your app from listed to unlisted. There's obviously a lot of reasons to be listed, but maybe you just want to control your install flow. For whatever reason, you can change your visibility. It's no problem. So real quick, we're just going to go through this detailed description. So this is a pretty big description for sure. It's definitely detailed. That's what we want to see. We don't want to really see like 3 lines. We obviously understand that apps functionality varies drastically in terms of complexity. You've got things that are, massive ERP apps, and then you've got things that might just throw a widget on your storefront and call it a day. So obviously those things don't need, massive descriptions, but the main thing here is that you just want to talk a little bit about your app and what problem can it solve for the merchant who is installing it.
But not only the merchant. The merchant's not the only person that reads this page. And this kind of blew me away when I found out. And if you think about how merchants run their businesses, sometimes they call into support and they ask for recommendations. So you will have support advisors looking at this page, and because they're in a live call, they're going to be quickly reading over it. So fast read, make sure it's to the point, what can be done, what can't be done. I always love a website that has a really detailed explanation of what's going on, maybe even case studies if that's what your app needs to have. And that FAQ page couldn't be more important in these situations. Some merchants actually have other people running their businesses, right? Because they might just be focusing on creating their products. Those people also will be looking and reading through your listing to see what they can or cannot do with your app. It's so important to make sure that this is very concise, to the point, and really readable.
Yeah, definitely. No, really good points for sure. And yeah, I remember when I was a support advisor, I would be looking at the App Store a lot. Um, and yeah, that was an extremely important part because especially when like it wasn't App Store kind of 2.0, those old listings, you really needed a good description because that was the
Yeah.
first thing you were looking at. Um, but yeah, this is good. There's definitely like a lot of breakdown of features here. So I would kind of rank it as like, what does your app do, the problem it solves, and then you can start talking about its features and need to knows. The main thing that we do not want to see in your detailed description are going to be like any kind of like URL because it won't render. You can't put in like your support and contact information, like any questions, just email support at Gift Sales Booster. We have dedicated sections for that, and we really want to keep them there. And at the end of the day, that's just like one more thing that you would have to keep updated. So keep them in the dedicated fields. It's a lot easier for both us and yourself to keep track of. So this is definitely a good detailed description. Also, there's sometimes things like when you're doing Markdown, depending on your familiarity, it can look a little wonky. So if we're going through your detailed description and we see something and we're like, we're almost 100% sure that was supposed to be a like bulleted list, we will let you
Bolded
know. We're not going to let
text or
you like
something.
shoot out a detailed
Yeah.
description that looks really, really whack. So like, for example, we got these points here, which are separated by what looks to be like a bullet point. So what I would do is I would reach out and just say, hey, not sure what you're going for here. Just wanted to bring you this to your attention. And also, we understand that we've got developers from all over the world, which is really awesome. And a lot of the times they want their immediate listing or their primary listing rather to be in English. And we are happy to go through it. And if we notice that there are some like spelling or grammatical issues, we're going to address those for you. We're going to let you know. And we'll even recommend you something like Hemingway Editor or something like that, just so you can make sure
Oh
that
yeah.
everything's looking sharp. So we won't let you push out
I love
yeah,
Hemingway.
we won't like deliberately turn a blind eye to a listing that we think doesn't look super awesome. Because
I
yeah,
won't lie to you. When I've done app reviews, if there's like a capital letter missing, I've even gone ahead and just like added that capital letter myself instead of just like waiting or like possibly just publishing something that might not be 100% polished, you know?
I also love that hydration rewards are being redeemed in the chat, which is great. Never drink enough water.
These are like the most two hydrated people at Shopify, I swear to
Yeah,
God.
great job to
Um,
Jeff and Liam answering questions in the
yeah.
chat too. Thank you so much. Massive
Thank you.
poggers in the chat.
Somebody actually asked a really great question about creating icons.
Okay.
If either Liam or Jeff, we do have a really great article that talks about app
Mm-hmm.
icons and how to create them. So we'll try to link that for you so you can see what's necessary, what the requirements are, and just like what looks really good.
Definitely.
Mhm.
So let's see. I'm just kind of going through this description. Yeah, so the main thing is that I would probably just talk to the developer about kind of these bullet points here because I'm not sure what they're going for. So I just kind of ask if they're looking that to be more of a vertical stack, if you will, as opposed to the horizontal line. Classic, though. Both classics. Love this, that they've got this demo situation here. Um, Normally, this is going to ask you to link
That's
to
super cool.
an example store. So that's the main thing.
Yeah.
We want to see what if
Oh
it's if
yeah.
it's storefront
If you have
affecting.
an app that like touches the storefront, a merchant will want to see what it
Yeah,
looks like. I mean, anybody would. Um, I think it's just such a powerful tool for you to sell your app to a merchant.
yeah, absolutely. And it's not just something like screenshots, right? Where it's like you can take a look at it, but it's important to understand how this app actually works. Another thing that a lot of people do, and we also encourage, is that we're actually okay if you put in like a demo URL to say like a YouTube link. I know actually last stream we were talking about this section in terms of maybe updating it to just be like view demonstration. So it's still something that
Yeah.
we're talking about, but for now, this is the actual kind of like text is going to save you example store. But if you were to throw in like a YouTube video, what people do is that they'll link to a store and then embed like a YouTube video of how it works there, if that's easier, and that's totally fine. We will not ding you for that. So that also, this app doesn't have a promotional video, which the thumbnail would live up here. but essentially a promotional video is just that. It should be kind of like a nice, elevator pitch kind of thing for your app that does a really quick job of saying kind of what your description does. Just like, this is who it's for, this is what it does, this is the problem it solves.
Please define quick. Because like 2 minutes is not quick.
Yeah, you don't want to be pushing that 2-minute mark. 2 minutes is like, that's 2 minutes. Some might even say 120 seconds. Little factoid for you. But it's super important. Just get your point across really quick. I'm a big 45-second promo video guy, and I don't really want to see a screencast of your app, because again, that's something that's more like demonstrative. So keep that in either the demo link, fire that off into your app's onboarding. People love the videos.
Oh my god, FAQ help docs.
Yeah, we got an FAQ link.
Like, those videos are gold in those circumstances.
No FAQ link here. That's totally fine. It's optional. Okay. These links are all work, by the way. I already checked them, but yeah, we will check these URLs to make sure that they are functioning.
Nice.
I didn't even answer that turnaround question time. So thank you, EC Mullins. Let's just be really transparent about the turnaround times. So right now, the two that are going to be kind of exceptions to this are going to be subscription apps and connector apps. Those are taking a little bit longer based on their app type. But across the board, we are and have been doing a really good job of keeping our maximum time in queue for app submissions to 7 days. So from the time of your submission, you will receive your preliminary review through our screening tool in 7 days' time. Honestly, it's normally quicker than that. So 7 is kind of the maximum.
At the end of the day, these are humans reviewing your app, where like we're not
nice.
Robots. It's really nice. You get that personal touch, but like these humans also need days off.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you hire humans and not robots.
Jeff in the chat is an absolute robot low key though, I would say. I've thought about it a lot lately. But that is so that's kind of the time to the first review. What happens after that, there's 3 things that can happen when we review your app for the first time. 1, it gets rejected. Nobody wants that, because then you have to resubmit. Number 2, it goes into review. So we send you the screening and we ask that you update these changes. You get back to us. In a perfect world, all the changes are made. We go, excellent news, and then we publish your app. So that back and forth is kind of like a variable. But normally we'll get back to you as fast as we possibly can. Here's the thing. I've had app reviews from submission to publication in 2 days. I've had kind of more complex apps where the back and forth unfortunately goes on a little bit longer, and then you get up to that kind of like over a week mark. Something important to note is that obviously everyone's really busy, especially right now, but please get back to us as soon as you can, letting us know that you've updated those changes, because if for some reason it takes quite a while, like if you don't get back to us for 30 days, you're going to have to resubmit your app, because at that point we're just going to like the kind of context is a little fuzzy.
It's gone.
Yeah. Just to level with you.
It's not fresh anymore, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, we understand.
But like by that 30-day mark, you've probably seen 100 apps already.
Yep.
So how can you remember what happened? You'd sort of have to start fresh.
That's the thing. So
yeah.
Ballpark time. I know everyone's looking for a ballpark.
Yeah.
But that's I mean, I would say perfect world, everything's going awesome. Mm-hmm. Let's just say you were on that 7th day of that submission process. I mean, ideally 7 to 9 days if everything's just on point. Those changes are being addressed. The third kind of outcome that can happen when you submit your app and it gets reviewed is that it's just so perfectly awesome that it gets published immediately. This is rare, but that doesn't mean that things are bad. It's just there's almost always going to be something that we might ding you for, and that's just because we want these apps to be good when we're putting them out the door, you know. But yeah. So ballpark.
At the end of the day, merchant is using it, so may as well be good. I think it's in everybody's best interest.
Just over a week is going to be the ballpark I'm going to give. I would say 7 business days. Excluding weekends, unless you're Jeff, the robot. So let's talk about. We would love robot Jeff, loving robots. So
Jeff is the reason I'm hydrated.
Oh, so true, man. What's the longest time you've seen from submission to listing? Oof. Yeah, there's some doozies. But that's the thing, like
Yeah.
some partners are full time, this is what they do, and then there's kind of like the more startup-y ones, and there's the kind of one person shows. So it varies a lot. I would say the longest I've seen is something like 6 weeks, but there was like back and forth at that point. It was a very like
Yeah.
unique situation, so we'll leave it at
It
that.
wasn't just like both parties not responding for 6 weeks. It was there just happened to be a lot of work that needed to take place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
3 months in 2018. That is quite possible.
Annihilate.
That's quite possible.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just gonna go through these screenshots real quick. Bottom line is these are good screenshots. Things like infographs and stuff there is totally fine. I would say that for something like this, like try to maximize the real estate you have, but these are fine. They're appropriate. They show the admin view. A couple things to note is that please don't use like a demo merchants store or something like that, or like a non-development
Yes.
store for a screenshot, because that is what we would consider sensitive information. So this does a good job. It shows you the admin view, nothing crazy, shows the functionality, and it shows the storefront view. So that's a really important thing that we want to see, is that if your app affects the storefront, we want to see a screenshot that shows the internal user interface, and then obviously we want to see what it actually does to a merchant store. So make sure you touch on both of those. You also have the ability to upload mobile screenshots. What's really important about that is that,
Ooh, I was just gonna ask you.
yeah,
You read my
it
mind.
still happens now and then, and it's kind of fun
Yeah.
when it happens because we always get to have a laugh with the dev. But basically, the mobile screenshots are what your app user interface will look like on a mobile device. It's not
Yeah.
if the person is viewing that app store on a mobile device. So basically, don't just take like this screenshot and then shrink it to like a mobile dimension, because that's not what we're looking
Kinda.
for. Um, but yes.
There's like a shocking number of merchants, and not just merchants. I think it's just the world we live in today. Like how many people just operate their entire life out of their cell phone,
Yeah,
right?
big time.
You might be one of those people, and if you are, then make your app, responsive. Make sure that it works in a mobile
Yeah,
view,
easy to
if
see.
that's something that really matters to you, and I think it does matter to your merchants.
Yes. Got a couple flags here for the billing API. Yeah, you definitely want your test
Yeah.
flag. You want your test flag on for sure when we're reviewing it, because
Yes.
that's the way we're going to test that you are using the billing API correctly. So make sure that's on. When it gets to the point that we publish your app in a big kind of jargon block of text, very prominently, we will say that if you're charging for your app, set the test flag to null because you're going live and you need
Yes.
to make real money. um,
Yeah.
Super
Not
important to
pretend
make real
money.
money with your app.
Oh, there's a really great question. If somebody wants to test their app with a select amount of merchants, how would you go about doing that? Private app, then turn public, or does it need to be reviewed first? Like I said before, if your app is going to be consumed by merchants, it needs to be reviewed. And then you can keep it in unlisted form for as long as you need to do this private beta test, right? When it's in the unlisted form, you can actually send your merchant or your test subject a direct link to your application that only they can install
Mm-hmm.
now. Um, Honestly, that's probably the best way to do it, because then if you get through the review process, you're going to learn a lot about your application before it's consumed by merchants.
Yeah, absolutely. And we encourage that you do that. What probably makes me the most nervous in an app review is when I go to the submission and I see that it's never been installed before. um, Gets me sweating.
You're like, "Ooh,
Uh, even if I see that you've got like a dev build or a local build or something like that, uh, just install that API key. Like no matter what, just
yeah,
test her out. Super important. You
yeah,
know, makes me feel good when I see that it's been installed before. You know, um,
it
but
means it's gotten attention
yeah, exactly.
before,
It's gotten
right?
some love.
Yeah,
So real
I
quick,
got you,
the
Paul.
pricing section. This is the
Yeah,
only place the pricing about your listing should live. I don't want to see it anywhere else in your listing. I don't want to see it in your title. I don't want to see it in your key benefits. I don't want to see start now for just $4.99 a month. I don't want to see it anywhere but here. Here. um,
here
Big hydrate.
at my desk.
Yeah, so this
It's
plan,
good.
or this app rather, has 2 plans. This is where you can list up to 4 plans. If you have more, you just use that additional charges checkbox and say, we've got more plans available, hit our pricing link. We get it. But yeah, 4 plans is normally plenty. Um, there was a question in the Slido forum about app plans or pricing plans that correspond to your level of Shopify subscription.
Ooh,
Good
yes.
question. Long story short, gonna level with you. We don't necessarily check the different tiers. We kind of go on intent there, and we assume that this is going to work because we're kind of also in that dev shop environment where we're only really
Yeah.
going to get dinged for the basic Shopify plan in that situation. So yes. Also, if you've got like an enterprise plan where you say like contact us for pricing, that's a really good use of the additional charges checkbox as well, where you just basically redirect someone to that pricing page on your website.
Same goes for variable volume based pricing. Matt here is asking a question on usage based pricing. I don't know how common this is, but if we've got a usage based pricing, I'll do my best to try to trigger that usage charge. So that usage charge might be like based on the number of products you have, or it might be based on the number of sales you
Mm-hmm.
have. And if I see that before I install the app, I'm going to try and preset my test store to make sure that I trigger that charge. So if you're asking for 10,000 products, I'm going to import 10,000 products into my into my test store.
Yeah, it's always a fun day. So I
Yeah,
see the incredible username of Shopify Merchant is. Don't worry about asking that
I
question again.
know.
I did see it. I did see it before. What are additional fees exactly?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, a usage charge would be something like an additional fee that Ivana just
Yeah.
described. So if there's something like, um, yeah, per 100 orders, something like that, per 100 products, that would be a good example of a usage charge where you can say it's free to install because it is, and then it's like if you want to start
Yeah.
using it and you've got this many orders, or it's free under 50 orders a month, anything like that, that's when you'd want to use that additional charges field and just say yes, it's free, but here's what you'll be charged for. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if you...
Cool. Yeah, don't worry if you have to ask questions
Yeah, that's
again if
fine.
we've
We
missed
get
them.
that it's a busy buzz right now.
Obviously, this is moving at incredible speeds, and you guys are incredibly
Yeah.
engaged, and I really love that. But if you have to ask that question again, don't feel bad. Go ahead and do it. But like we said before, we're definitely going to try to answer
Yeah,
everything.
absolutely.
If not now, for sure later.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love seeing
Do
again.
you have a tool? Oh, I got a good
We
one
got.
for you.
Do we
Do you
ever?
have a tool we can use to fill up our Shopify store with 10,000 products so we can simulate your experience? I use developer tools that I found on the Shopify GitHub.
Yep. That's actually what we all
Yeah,
use. That's our
yeah,
dummy data populator, basically. So whenever I
totally.
test up a set store, when I set up a test store,
Yeah.
I will
I
use
also
that.
created a CSV that has something like 30,000 products on it that I just multiplied over and over again. And when I see that I need to trigger a usage charge, that's when I import that CSV.
Yep. Got one at the ready at all times.
You know it. We're professionals.
Some people call me the doctor of dummy data.
Yeah.
Let's see. A lot of stuff pouring in. Real quick, yeah, we are going to put this video up afterwards. So if anyone has missed the start of the stream
Yeah.
or couldn't make it today at all, it's going to be going up on our YouTube. And what we will probably do is chop up the stream into kind of like more useful chunks, just to get the highlights. So
Yeah.
you don't have to watch the whole thing for a specific question. So real quick, pricing. This is where you want to essentially just list anything to do with what your app is going to cost. You have pretty free reign over this. The main thing we ask is obviously that this pricing is what we're going to see in the app. We don't want to see any discrepancies here. Be really mindful of your free trial time that you enter here. A lot of the times, well, not a lot of the times, but I have seen that someone, let's say like 14 days, and then when I'm at that billing authorization screen, it's actually only 7 days. So that would be a really
Yes.
good way to upset a merchant. So just that's a really important part. This is what they're paying for the app, and this is where kind of your payout money is coming from as well. So you really want to make sure that this is as accurate as possible. And again, to emphasize, that is why we confine it to these fields, because if you have to update your pricing in 4 other spots, gonna be a bad time.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a pricing question
Okay.
from our questionnaire. Um, is it legal when an app is set as free in the app listing, but it has a link to see all pricing, which route the merchant to its website with other paid plans?
Yeah. So, I mean, technically speaking, that is legal. But
Depends which
yeah,
jurisdiction you're
exactly.
living
But on
in.
the Shopify App Review jurisdiction, no.
Yeah.
We'll flag that for sure. Again, that has to do with accuracy of pricing. But yeah, if you say your app is free to install and then we install it and see that it's not,
Yeah.
we'll definitely let you know. And of course, if that funnels us somewhere where you're going to attempt to be charging us outside of the billing API, your app is going to get rejected. So, really important that you are very clear on your pricing and that you are using the billing API because that is a very mandatory requirement.
Yeah.
It's a really good question, though.
I'm going to answer a question from Robert. Do you have a strong preference on apps using GraphQL? I think we kind of touched on this during our last stream. It doesn't matter to us what language you're building your app in, what kind of technology you're using. We don't look into that. I think the only thing that really truly matters is performance.
Hmm.
And that's kind of like a really big deal to merchants. And if GraphQL is going to enable your app to be more efficient, it's going to enable you to be quicker, it's going to enable you to save a little bit of money on your API calls. I encourage you to use it because it will help. However, nothing is mandatory or set in stone, um, but performance really matters.
Yes. There's a lot of things once the app gets installed that we're going to be looking at performance wise for sure. We don't really
Yeah.
want an app to be like basically, if an app is slow, we're going to let you know.
Yeah.
There's obviously going to be things like, let's say we got 10,000 products you need to import to your app. If that's taking a while, we're not going to ding you for that. But I'm talking like literal assets of your user interface propagating extremely slowly. We will let you know. And sometimes it's just like, oh, we forgot to switch this build or something like that. So not a
Yeah.
huge deal. But again, we want you to be successful. We're going to let you know. Real
I'm going to
quick.
ask you another hot
Yeah, go for
question.
it.
Um, what happens with the post approval reviews? So we've got a question in chat that kind of ties into a question that we've got from
Oh,
our
yeah.
earlier questionnaire. Um, I can update my screenshots, description tag lines, taglines, pricing, and whatever without a new review. But are apps being re-reviewed in the App Store?
So, short answer is yes, they are. We've been ramping up there's always been kind of app audits occurring for apps that are currently published. And obviously, you've probably heard some news about a large number of apps that have been delisted or removed from the Shopify App Store. Um, but yeah, we are ramping up those audit efforts pretty intensely. So we
Yeah.
are definitely keeping tabs on apps that are already published. Again, what's important for us is that like you have control over your app, right? It is yours, and
Yeah.
if you have to go in and update your name or you need to update your description on your listing or something like that, like that's totally fine. That's why we don't kind of like lock down this stuff. But obviously, with that, you might find some people that kind of try to game the system, as we'll call it. Um, but yeah, that's definitely something that we are mindful of. We have an entire partner governance team now that does an incredible job. So yeah, rest assured that they're excuse me, I don't know why I'm choking up. This is just an intense topic. But yeah, we've got people behind the scenes all the time who are taking a look at the Shopify App Store. Posture
Totally.
check on that.
Like also your biggest auditors are your merchants.
Yeah,
They'll
they
leave
talk.
reviews. We read those reviews. They let our support teams know if something's not going as expected or if it's breaking. We're gonna hear about it, and then eventually you get to hear about it too.
Yeah. There was also a question about kind of ranking up on the Shopify App Store within your
Yes.
category. Not necessarily just like your search results, but in the specific kind of category you're in. I mean, the main thing to talk about
Yeah.
with that is make a really good app is kind of the main thing.
Yeah.
And like all ads and stuff aside, I'm just talking about an app that delivers, that's going to get good reviews, You're doing your
It adds
yeah
value.
do
It has to add value to the merchant's entire world.
yeah, it does. It has to solve a
Basically.
problem. It has to solve a problem, or else
Yeah.
you're likely not going to get that kind of organic rank up. But basically, make a really good app, do your due diligence, figure out what it has to do. If you're going into an extremely competitive field of apps, maybe think about that. What is it that you're doing that makes it more simple, easy to use, something like that? And these things will come, and you'll rank up. Offering really good support is something that we look at too. Um, yeah, gaining traction with your review count, getting a nice kind of spike of installs, things like that. But essentially, if you make a really good app that is going to solve a problem merchants are facing, I
Yeah.
really don't see how that is going to fail, um, or not
No.
rank up organically.
I and then like as soon as your app solves that problem, trigger a review request within the app
Yeah,
UI. Honestly, it's the best tool. Make sure you're asking for genuine feedback. But as soon as you see a positive action to the merchant using your app, ask for a review. It's really simple.
yep.
If your app has helped somebody make a sale, ask for a review. That's when they're most likely to give you honest, true feedback on the value that your app is providing.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things about that is optimize what we call optimizing for the install. So
Yeah.
I did a whole Twitter AMA on this like months ago, talking about app onboarding and what that looks like. And
Yeah.
that brings us to like throw us some test instructions for your app. Doesn't matter how simple your app is. Test instructions that are like install and use the app. Sure, but give us like the deep dish instructions, throw in a demo video there, link us to your demo store. We will take a look at it if we're not sure. But basically, like, if I am not crystal clear on A, what your app does, and B, how to use it, the chance that like a first touch merchant is going to figure that out are really, really slim.
Mm.
So a
Yeah.
lot of the time you can get into that kind of like developer's fallacy where you're like, it's so simple. How do you not get it? But the fact is, there are merchants from all kind of technical experience backgrounds here. So
Oh my God, totally.
you gotta make it easy, or else it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see here. We're just kind of going through rapid fire on some questions here because there's so many,
Yeah.
which I love.
And we're running out of time so
Yeah, I
quickly.
know. Speaking about this specific app, though, I just want to hop back to this. The main things about this app itself, which I'll open. First of all, I'm just going to say that this app works really, really well. So basically, it captures my leads. It's a nice dashboard. It's a really simple app to set up. They do a good job of kind of like explaining stuff. Things that I kind of ding them on is that this is a storefront affecting app, so it needs to be disabled by default. So when I install an app that affects my storefront, it
Set it
shouldn't,
to
yeah, it
off.
shouldn't just like enable after I click save and make changes. So I will have to ask them to put in like a little enable disable toggle. And there's a lot of reasons why you'd want to do that, right? Like maybe you don't want this to keep popping up because your discount has ended or something like that. So very simple. The pop-up displays on my site. It grabs the lead. It brings me over here, which I see. All this stuff is really, really functional. The only thing that I'd really ding them on is going to be that enable disable toggle for the pop-up. The other thing, and this is kind of when we can go a little freestyle on the review, and what I'd also let this developer know is that there's actually no text color swatch. So I completely blacked out this button and it doesn't really tell me what to do. So those are things that we'll look at from like an
Gotcha.
accessibility standpoint. But after I would kind of do my storefront check to make sure this app works, I'd try it out. I pasted in a link to one of my discounted products and tested being able to export my lead to a CSV. And then the main thing after all that has been done, I will try to reinstall the app. And this app did reinstall, just, spoiler alert. So it's basically good to go. There are
Nice.
very few changes this developer has to make to get published on the Shopify App Store.
I like that. That's going to be a really quick review. And it kind of like answers that question again. So this will be published as soon as the partner can respond back
Yes, exactly.
and make those
Yeah,
changes,
basically
right?
I'll go on, quickly validate that those changes have been made, probably reinstall the app. Always let us know if you need us to reinstall the app to see those changes, because we get that
Yeah.
builds can vary. So just tell us what we need to do. Don't worry about it. That's what we like to see. But again,
Yeah.
test instructions, which is the last part of your App Store listing submission, are so important. I really cannot
Yeah.
stress that enough.
I'm going to answer last question if I possibly
For
can
sure.
real quick. Is it possible to list an app for the Shopify POS only? We'd like to extend it to e-commerce at a later stage. That's where that unlisted feature comes in real
Beauty,
handy.
yeah.
Yeah, like right now, anything that's on the Shopify App Store has to be able to be consumed by the merchant as is, right? So having it just be POS only probably won't fly in the listed state. So definitely take advantage of that unlisted state. And that way you can also have a little bit of control of who's installing it. And then you can give out those links directly.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a really good use case actually for being unlisted only. And
Yeah.
again, that if you wanted to do that, that would be something that you have complete autonomy over. You can switch your app to being unlisted. We would not like lock your app as unlisted for that reason.
No.
All right. Still a lot of questions. So I'm assuming we
Man,
got,
time's
yeah, we're
flying
well over that
by.
hour mark, or we're at that hour mark, I should say. So we're going to wind this down for sure. But Jeff and Liam have been compiling these questions. And
Yes.
also, what we're hoping to do is, like, obviously, we got a lot of questions asked on that Slido form. Thank you for asking those
Yeah.
questions. All of them were very good. And it gives us a lot of good insight in terms of, like, what are questions that are being asked often. So we definitely want to have these live somewhere that you can refer to. The main thing is that our requirements for submitting apps to the Shopify App Store are fluid. They're going to change. It's not going to change every single day, but
No.
if you do want kind of
But
like,
we grow
yeah,
with apps
the
and
ecosystem
merchants.
grows, and
Yeah.
with that there's going to be some
Yeah.
changes to requirements. So if you want like the number one source of truth, please go to our documentation.
Yeah.
If you're reading a blog article and you see that it's from a little while ago, triple check that link, make sure that it's still kind of like relevant. That's what, obviously we do that on our end too. But yeah, just always refer to our documentation, and then don't hesitate to reach out if you have a kind of like specific thing you want to get clarified.
How will the people whose questions we haven't been able to answer yet, how will they be able to get answers? Should we direct them to our Twitter?
That's a good question. I think Liam is on that in the chat. They've been putting them into a Google Doc, but in terms of us getting back to you, either we're just going to post up a forum where we're going to have all the questions with some answers in it. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, you might have to hunt there. But yeah, I'm not sure. We could do Twitter for sure. We'll definitely announce on Twitter when we have the questions out, kind of thing. So keep in mind and
Absolutely.
definitely follow us on Twitter. Little plug. And there's
Liam has posted a really great survey. It's a post-stream survey. Take some minutes to fill it out. Let us know what you want to hear from us from next time. What's working really well, what's not working really well. These are designed for you. Our intention is fully to help you. So
Yep.
give us some feedback, because we want to make sure that you're getting value out of this.
100%.
Your time is important to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's really good about this again is that we can kind of see where we're getting that kind of like FAQ stuff going on. I noticed that there were a lot of questions surrounding kind of OAuth and the billing API and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So going forward, we really want to keep these streams going. And this was obviously an extremely general one, but I think what would be great is to, thanks for the posture check. I know. What we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of get a little more granular with it. Like, I know there were some questions specifically about sales channels, so we'll probably do a stream where we talk about, this is how I review a sales channel, this is how I review a product sourcing app, things like that, because those have their own specific set of requirements as well. But maybe we do a stream just all about the billing API. Who knows? So those are good things.
Deep knowledge here.
Let us know what it is that you kind of really like to see us stream on as well. But for the most part, we're going to talk about the app review process always, and take a look at the survey. Please fill it out, and we're going to we're going to post through our Twitter like a forum essentially where you can see the Q&A aspect of this AMA.
Absolutely. Nice.
And I think that's it.
Thank
I'm
you.
out of breath. This was crazy.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. This has been really incredible.
Great.
Your questions are so great, so smart. Thank you to Liam and Jeff. You guys are crushing it.
Definitely.
But we really appreciate this. And we'll be back.
And yeah, we see you.
You can't get rid of us.
Quick question about what the uniform is going to be for the next stream. I'm thinking like a wide-brimmed hat. You
Oh,
know,
I've got a perfect
I
one.
figured,
Yeah.
yeah. So probably some wide brimmed
Yeah.
hats. Yeah.
Are we both gonna look like Francis Melman? I think so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'll have a 3 liter
Patagonia
bottle of
with a wide brim
Malbec next
hat.
to my
Let's
stream
go.
that'll just be hitting
Yeah.
throughout when I get a stressful question. I'll just dial in a little Vino Rosso.
Uh,
All right. On that
it's
note,
a bad night to be a Pinot.
bad night to be a Pinot Noir. Okay, we're out of here, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the questions
Thank
again.
you. Thank you.
And we will, yeah, watch our socials. You'll see what you need to see in terms of, yeah, the forum and stuff like that. Hit that survey, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Bye.